Hey everybody, this is Michael out in Maui. Aloha. So if you've been enjoying all the contents that I've been putting out, I recommend subscribing to the channel. So let's talk throwing forehand. So when you're throwing forehand, a lot of times people will throw it for a right turning shot. You always throw with a overstable disc. There's more torque on the release, so it's easy to flip an understable disc. So most people will throw, a stable disc straight, have it turn to the right. Forehand is usually thrown as a right turning shot. But there's all kinds of different shots you can throw, through the trees, forehand, that you should learn. They're not too hard. A lot of times it comes into more of a placement shot than a throw. A tee off, teeing off forehand, get the disc turned. But once you're in the trees, there's different little shots you can throw forehand, to get the disc to, fly a little farther, flex it back, throw a little spike, So I just recommend, like when you're throwing forehand, just, try different shot shapes. You got to remember, it's all done by the disc. So depending on which disc you throw is how you throw that forehand shot. So forehand shot with a little more hyzer. So it's just right here. So forehand shot. Just low to the ground, spike hyzer to the right. Same shot, a little more distance, a little less. I don't want it to hyzer as much. So that one was starting to turn to the right a lot slower. Keeping the disc a little straighter, a little more distance, but straighter. So nice and straight, finishes with the right side turn. Maybe force the disc up on end, bring it to the left, and then have it come back. Threw it a little too far for the camera, but just threw it up on end, pulled it to the left, had it flex back out, land forward. And then understable disc thrown forehand. A little more nerve-wracking, you got to pay attention to it, but you should be able to get a lot more glide out of it, a little more distance. Flipped it. I flipped that one. Yeah, it came out. I came out and I rolled it up just a little bit. And you can see how it just caught the wind and it stayed going left. And once it starts going left, it's not going to come back. It's just going to keep going left. So that's, like I said, the one thing about throwing understable disc forehand is that you really got to make sure you release that disc, hand below the elbow on that release. I got too touchy with it because I wanted to throw it flat. So because I wanted to throw that disc flat, I brought the disc up higher, but I ended up bringing it up too high and I got my hand above my elbow. And once your hand goes above the elbow, it turned it. And like I said, being an understable disc, it can't fight out of it. Once it's turned over, the disc is going to keep going left. So that's one of the benefits of, like I was saying, you always want to throw forehand with the stable disc, because even though I flipped this understable disc, if I had flipped an overstable disc, it still would have fought back some. you know, it's still going to turn. You know, if I throw the understable disc, it's going to keep turning. But if I accidentally pull a overstable disc left, it's going to come back. So you're not going to, you know, it's not going to be as bad, you know, because like I said, the overstable is going to bring you back some. So, but yeah, so you just got to remember, you know, when you're throwing forehand, you know, it's all up to the disc to get the distance, you know, but I recommend always trying to stay with a stable disc that's going to go to the right, and just be really careful, you know, if you start throwing understable disc forehand, you know, because they could flip. So anyways, this is Michael out in Maui. Aloha.